everybody, and welcome back to another episode of The Male Perspective. I am your host, Lana Reid, and today is another one of those amazing and phenomenal days. I get to spend some time with one of the awesome men of Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated. Today I have with me Brother Bryan Morrison. He is with Rho Mu Mu out in the west side of Chicago. And shortly we will hear some more about the work that his chapter is doing in that area and other things going on in his life. But first and foremost, as I always do, sir, I take a quick moment to pause, say thank you to you for making time for me today. Time is a gift. Once we give it, we can't get it back. So I truly appreciate you setting aside this time in your day to chat with me. And with that, sir, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to join you on this podcast. So always love an opportunity to speak on behalf of the brothers of Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated, as well as Black men when I can.
Awesome. I love it. Well, first, as we get going here, let me ask, how long have you been a Omega man?
Since fall of 1992.
92. Oh, so we got some time in. And where'd you pledge?
Southeast Missouri State.
Okay, and so what was going on in 1992 at South Missouri State that made you say, you know what, Omega is home for me?
Well, it started before fall of 92, right? It started, I would say, in fall of 1986, while I was in high school, and just being introduced to college in the sense of the guys in my neighborhood that graduated high school and went on to college, and their interest in the fraternity, and seeing the type of young men that they were, and then more importantly, their fathers were Omega men, and just seeing how they moved and operated with their families. It was just something about them that drew my interest to them. And so when I got to college in fall of 90, the brothers were on the yard, and developed relationships. Several of the brothers were already on the football team. I played football there, so being active around them, and again, you see, young men act differently at 19 and 20 than they do, when they're 40 and 50, right? Yes. So I saw a full scope of the men, but being at that age and that time, it was something that was still of great interest of mine, and I had an opportunity to pledge Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated, and here I am.
Awesome. So I heard you say it started well before college, and your chapter is situated around west side Chicago. Are you born and raised in Chicago?
No, born and raised in St. Louis. So I'm originally from St. Louis, yeah. And then I moved here through work several years ago. I've been here since 2005.
Okay. So you got some time in Chicago, and let me ask
Well, I'll say this: not Chicago proper. Right now. I'm in Aurora, Illinois, which is about, I don't know, maybe 35 miles straight western suburbs of the city.
Okay, but you're still close. Well, let me ask if you can give some input for those who are not really aware of the landscape of Chicago. What's the difference between the west side, north side, and south side?
So speaking from somebody that lives in the suburbs, I'll tell you this. Most of us, the Black folks, are on the south side and the west side of Chicago. We're on the north side, but by and large, the demographics are the south side and the west side. So you'd have to ask somebody from the south side, what's the difference? But they both claim to be the best, right? Okay. And so as far as my affiliation with this particular chapter on the west side, I got introduced by some brothers who at the time were living in the far west. And this particular chapter is one other chapter that sort of serves the western side of Chicagoland and this west suburban area. And then it's the west side of Chicago chapter, Rho Mu Mu. And so the brother that was the bosses at the time, he and I had a real good relationship. And so I joined the west side Chicago chapter. So, it's some commuting involved, but, it's just time. You plan for it and you do what you need to do. And I've still been able to connect to do some things even out here in this area. Just because we don't have a chapter out here doesn't mean it's not Black folks out here.
True.
And so there's opportunity to serve the community, even where I am with the support of the West Side chapter. So, you work where you are.
And you guys do put in the work. It's one of the things that's so impressive. Now, I want to circle back to something that you kind of touched on. One of the things that I think is very impressive about the Brothers of Divine Nine is that it's an intergenerational setup and system where you have older brothers able to, connect with the younger brothers, able to connect with the older brothers and kind of just glean information and knowledge with each other. I think I'm going to mess it up here, but part of Omega Psi Phi is, you reach back and uplift. And
Yes.
you are a father, family man. How do you see as a brother, especially with everything that's going on in the world, how does it benefit you to have this generation built-in system of brotherhood just to get through life when it comes to fatherhood, being a husband, just work or whatever? What are the asset values to added values to life?
Well, I think we're all connected in some way, right? So that's the biggest thing, right? I believe that there's opportunity to give back to the younger generation, if you will, right? Because I see myself, I'm 51 years old now, and I can see the effects that I can have on a young man that's 14, 15 years old, right? In the same place that I was, right? In a family situation and not knowing what college was and seeing someone that's like, wow, I want to be like him one day, right? I see that. And so that drives me, and I think drives a lot of brothers my age and older to want to give back because, we can remember when, and just based on that, it gives us the energy. And again, I have my boys, I have four, my daughter, and I have three boys. And so I do my best, right, to do what I need to do to keep things in order within my house. And then they also understand that I am trying to do my best for other young men who may not have a similar situation, right? And so if there's an opportunity for me to give back in some form or fashion through the fraternity or through church or whatever, that's what I want to do. And I try to include my boys when I can, right? Just to give them that exposure and experience on dealing with different people and different situations and whatnot. But I think as a family, we all understand our role in the community. And so it's not just about the six folks in my house.
I love it. Okay. Now, Chicago, media-wise, is getting a really bad rap with crime and young folks. And what I've learned over the years is a lot of times media tends to put more on it sometimes than what it actually is. You're there. The Brotherhood is involved in the community and active in the community. Just some insight. Is it really as troubling as what we're hearing?
So what I would say to that, I would say, Chicago is like any other city, right? That has issues from an economic standpoint. The economies in certain neighborhoods on the south side and on the west side, have been deprived of sort of economic growth, right, in certain areas. And so, unfortunately, when there are situations like that, it breeds, criminal activity, right? And so I don't think that's any different from this city than any other. What I will say is that, yes, I do believe that there's a level of unnecessary attention, if you will, with what's going on, because there's plenty of young people who are doing some great things, right? Again, we're involved with so many kids that are active in various chapters, various programs, various scholarship opportunities. So, unfortunately, again, it's the media, right? And what I say to that is we're partly to blame because we feed into it, because we perpetrate and, sort of comment on it. And I understand you asked your question, but I think the more we talk about what's going on in the media and what we're talking about versus, maybe speaking on the positive things more. It becomes a vicious cycle, and you can't turn the television on at 5 o'clock and not hear about crime.
True.
Right. And so again, it's just a constant reminder of the negativity that we just have in our culture. So you have to sort of void yourself with that. Stay aware of what's going on. I understand that. But it's just a constant reminder, and the constant feeding of that negative energy is just not healthy. It's not healthy.
Not at all. And especially when, as you move around, so many of our kids, like you said, are doing some positive things.
Yes.
And, for some reason or other, we don't want to shed light on that. But so many things are going on in our community that are just uplifting and inspiring. And we need to kind of spotlight those things much more. And one of those things that I want to talk about that your chapter is doing, and I saw your name on it, that's why I'm bringing it up.
Okay.
You back in June, your chapter had an Omega
STEM Sabbath. Yes.
Yeah. Tell me about that particular event and how is it going to happen again, I guess.
Yes. Okay. So for the fraternity as a whole, the STEM, Omega STEM is what it's called, became a mandate for the fraternity at our last Grand Conclave in 22. And so that was in July in Charlotte of last year. And based on that mandate, our chapter basically hit the ground running once we got back in August and started planning we wanted to do a robotics camp. And so we set that up on the west side of Chicago this past June at Austin Academy. So it's a high school on the west side of Chicago. And we partnered with a Black engineer, 𝗙𝗘𝗥𝗘𝗏, and that's her company, IT Savvy.
Okay.
And so we partnered with her, and she put on she presented to the kids. It was a week-long robotics camp. And we had ages from, I want to say 4th grade through 8th grade, which is kind of our target demographic, if you will, just to get the kids interested in the program and just to get them, excited about the STEM industries. And so for our first year, it was a success. And so, we will make it an annual event. That won't be an issue. That won't be a problem, because that's just going to be a given going forward.
Okay.
And then we're actually in works of trying to partner with 𝗫𝗫𝗫 in different parts of our district to introduce STEM throughout our district. We have several chapters that are already active in some various form with STEM projects, with it being a mandate now. But we got some good contacts that we're going to hopefully leverage. Awesome. Because even with 𝗫𝗫𝗫𝗫, I mean, their goal is to introduce, STEM to the younger folks. So partnering with someone like Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated is just a win-win for everyone, especially specifically our youth, right? Okay. I mean, that's who is for this to benefit them, not us, and not 𝗫𝗫𝗫𝗫 per se. It's for the kids. So you're very excited about that Omega STEM.
Awesome. So I want to make sure I didn't miss it. Was that at a particular high school, or was that?
Yes, it was a particular high school. Okay. Yeah, so we partnered with that high school. Obviously, it's summertime, so they had summer school programs going on. But we had our classroom set up, and we had our kids. They come check in every morning. They had breakfast, and then it was from 9 to 12:30. So 3 hours of robotics and coding, and then we had a few guest speakers, African American men who are actively involved as engineers, whether they were civil engineers. We had a computer engineer that came in and spoke to the kids throughout the week. So it was 5 days, and I think we had 3 speakers, right? So which was good, and then we provided lunch for them after the program. So it was great. Okay. We had some kids again from the local elementary area. We had some kids from a group home that we partner with, which is great. And then we had some other kids just affiliated with the chapter. Other brothers had their kids that were younger, and so it was good.
Okay.
About 12 kids or so.
So a young person doesn't have to go to that particular high
No,
school. Okay, all right, that was my
no,
concern,
no,
because I was going to be, okay, well, how do we
no.
get this to expand? So, okay.
Yeah, yeah, it was kids on the west side of Chicago. I mean, that's where we are. That's where the high school was. If you could come from the south side, great. But primarily, we were looking for kids on the west side of Chicago that could, walk to the school basically, right? Or if their parents were able to drop them off or whatever, but within walking. So it's a neighborhood school.
Gotcha. Sometimes that's all it takes, is just giving a young person that
Mhm.
experience, that
Yeah,
exposure.
exposure. Yeah,
This could be possible for you, and
yeah,
it changes the trajectory of a child's life. So, I think
yes.
that's amazing. Let me move on here, because
Okay,
I have a tendency of running my mouth a little bit, and so
okay.
I want to make sure I pack everything in. I have one more question about fraternity life, and then I want to move into you professionally. You are currently on the executive board as keeper of records and seal, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, so if you were to be talking to, because you mentioned the younger brothers coming in and the mindset at 19, 20, entering into the fraternity as a whole different.
Mhm.
But I was an undergrad at one point in
Mhm.
time. But if you were to be mentoring one of the younger brothers as they step into their journey, of course, we want them involved and active and rolling up their sleeves and doing the work.
Mhm.
What would you give them? What would you advise them about the benefits of looking to the future and serving on the executive board? What would they get from that?
You get a full exposure of the fraternity, right? From the business side of the fraternity, understanding that there's a time for to be out, if you will, right? There's a time for that, but the business of Omega is constant. There's always something going on. There's always an opportunity to serve, and so from that standpoint, understand that and recognize there's the business side of Omega that has to be taken care of prior to anything else, right? And so note that we can work hard and then we can play hard, right? But the business of Omega is priority. So that would be my charge to the young brothers, as they mature into Omega.
Put in the work, put in the
Yeah.
work. And I think I like the way you put that, as you mature into Omega, because when you come in at as a younger age, of course, the mindset is
Mhm.
about the experience of college, and that can entail many things. Most of us have been there. So it's just so wonderful to see the growth and the maturity, and
Mhm.
to see all of you in the neighborhoods and the communities that you are putting in that servant work. So I
Yes.
think well, let me segue to you professionally,
Okay.
because you have a very interesting career, that I think a lot of people behind the scenes don't really understand how much of their life revolves around the work that you do. You're in the logistics and transportation industry.
Yes.
And we heard about this industry a lot during the pandemic, and especially when it comes to this term supply chain. A lot of
Yes.
us, we can't get our toilet paper because of gentlemen like you. So first and foremost, what was it about the logistics and transportation industry that the supply chain connects and got interrupted and all of that stuff? How did that parlay for the people who are not aware of what happened?
Okay. So what I'll say, that was the whole COVID situation, right? So I want to be respectful for what I say about that time period, because a lot of people lost their lives with that,
Yeah.
right? And I want to acknowledge that first, right? It was a difficult time for a lot of folks, especially in our community. Okay, so I want to say that first, and what I will say next is that as far as my industry goes, it was a blessing and a curse, right? And I'll say that the blessing was that people finally acknowledged what we've been doing forever. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So, hell, 5 years ago, I would say that I'm in sales and logistics and transportation. And they're like, well, what's that? Once COVID hit, I say that and they're like, oh, wow, what do you do? And, there's a new level of interest in my right. So that was pretty cool, because we feel appreciated now in what we do,
Yeah.
right? The other blessing is during that time period in 20 and 21, there were a lot of companies that made record profits, Okay. Record profits. Yeah. So it wasn't all doom and gloom. I'm talking my industry. I'm talking several industries across the board.
Oh,
Yes. Record profits. Right. So again, that was a blessing. Right. Just because there was, God willing, we won't see that sort of pandemic again, right, in our lifetime. And so there was an opportunity where, again, supply and demand,
okay.
right?
Okay.
And so I'll give you a perfect example. You remember the mask, right? Just the basic mask, right? So in March of 20, when the world shut down, right, there's this surge of we need masks, right? So, there was a situation you couldn't move containers. Well, you could move them, but there was a log jam, and you only have a certain number of people. And I'm speaking of China, for example.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. Well, so what's the next option? Well, let's charter an airplane, right?
Okay.
Full of masks, skids of masks, right? Where you can get millions of masks on an airplane, right? Because you know how thin they are. And just imagine that in a carton, imagine that in a box, imagine that on one skid, imagine, 200 skids, right? So, and I'll just throw a random number, approximate number. Prior to COVID, maybe a charter may cost you 250 grand. That's flying a large cargo aircraft, right? From mainland China to Chicago, maybe 250, right? Now you're at upwards of $1 million, right? So that's just the cost. So again, supply and demand. You have the airline, right? They understand the situation, right? They're not necessarily saying, I'm gonna give you this rate at the lowest rate possible, right? They're gonna take full advantage of the situation. And thus, here's your cost. You take it or leave it. And so when you have the U.S. government, right, or you have a state governor saying, I need to get these masks, just order them, right? And sign a check, right? So you just multiply that throughout the country.
Money, 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 money.
Right. And so again, you have that situation. You have the container situation where you have a delay in orders. Well, the orders keep coming. Everyone's home. They're just pointing and clicking, buying things. Right. Everybody's home, right? You just point and click, home workout equipment. What's the Pelotons, right?
Oh yeah, they were buying those in full force. Yeah.
Right. And so there's only so many you have in your warehouse. Right. So now you ordering them from China, right? Because they don't make them in Dallas, Texas, right?
Yeah,
they're in China, right? And so the folks in China, they only have a crew working 4 or 5 hours, and they're taking a break and they sanitize everything, and they come back. So it just created more of a bottleneck, right? And so it just and again, you move an ocean freight, that's not 3 days over the Pacific. Right.
So and that's what happened to our toilet paper.
Yes. Well, and then again, people manipulate, right? You can create demand real easily. You can create demand, right, from withholding, right? So I'll give you an example, and I'll just use the ocean freight containers. If an ocean freight container has 10,000 slots on a steamship, okay, and they say, okay, the price for 10,000 slots is 20 grand a pop. All right. And then for whatever reason on their next vessel, they say, oh, you know what? We only have 9,000 slots. Right. And if you want a slot, you got to pay 25 grand. Okay. So if you want a slot, you got to pay another 5 grand. Right. Okay. So they create demand because they reduce the supply. Okay. Right. Okay. For whatever reason. Okay.
Well, and I'm assuming profit, right?
And so they had record profits.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. And again, even today, right? Do you think the dollar store will ever go back to $1?
Oh no.
No. So that 25 cents is just here to stay. Gotcha. Yeah. Now, what's happened where we are currently, the rates, if you will, where the economy is sort of stabilized, interest rates are higher. the economy sort of come back. Rates are pre-COVID. So things are back to way, quote unquote, the way they were to a certain degree from my standpoint on the cost of transportation and the capacity in the market.
Even with gas?
Fuel comes into play sometimes, but for us, I mean, the cost is the cost. Fuel is always separate.
Okay.
Yeah, fuel is always separate, right? That's just in essence, a pass through. So whatever the current rate is, we just pass it through, right? But the costs vary, again, based on supply and demand. So right now, the market is 30% less than what it was last year, and damn near 50 from 21, right? Okay. So the supply of product is just not out there, so the demand isn't high, right? People aren't buying the way they were buying before, so rates go down.
You can still go into certain stores and still see empty spots, making you think that we're still having problems with the supply chain, but
by and large, no.
Okay.
No, by and large, no. No, it's just companies are being a little smart about maybe holding inventory. They purchased so much in 22 because of 21, and so, or late 21 going into 22, so the inventories were pretty full. So they're really just trying to get what they have out, right? There was a big, I don't know if you're familiar with just-in-time sort of inventory, just in time. So you order just in time to get your product out, right? So you don't carry a lot of inventory. Well, during COVID, if you were in that model, and once you sold your product and then they shut the world down, you didn't have any product. You didn't have anything. There was no inventory. So customers may order from you, but you're in a 6-month delay.
So it's like produce and stuff like that, maybe those types of items?
No, it could be widgets, right? It could be anything. You just don't want it because there's a cost to inventory, right? There's a cost. So if you can move your product in on a Tuesday and have it sold, or it's already pre-sold, comes in on a Tuesday and out Thursday, then it's a wash. But if it comes in and it sit there for 3 months, there's a cost associated with that, right?
Storage and all of that stuff.
Right. And it's not sold, right?
So, all right.
So that's sort of a just-in-time sort of model. But people got caught during COVID because once the product was gone, you didn't have anything.
And had a bunch of anger. Let me ask you one question before I move on to the next. Los Angeles and like New York are port type cities. Is Illinois the same setup?
Chicago is considered a port just based on the location in the country, and then just the capacity and volume of activity, business activity in Chicago. So it's considered a port, but obviously we don't have an ocean port, but it's considered a port from a rail standpoint. So ocean containers come into LA Long Beach, right? They're transferred to the rail system, and then they rail to Chicago. And from Chicago, they may rail to another point or just taken off the rail and move over the road to the final destination. But there's a lot of volume that comes through Chicago. Savannah is a significant port. Houston is a significant port. You mentioned JFK or Norfolk; those are significant ports. Oakland is a significant port. So yeah, any port of entry along the coast.
All right. Yeah. All right. Well, let me move forward to where we're going in the future in 2023, because I'm pushing up on my time here. We're hearing a lot about automation and AI. And I saw in the middle of COVID a truck driving itself, and I was like, whoa, what are we doing here? But where are we going in 2023 and forward with this concept of automation as it pertains to logistics and transportation?
Well, I'll tell you this, it is from an efficiency standpoint, it is going to make life easy for a number of people, both on our side and on the manufacturing side. And I would say that specifically. I mean, it will remove some jobs. I will say that from an automation standpoint, but honestly, I don't think that's not a secret, right? I mean, that's been the trend for several years with conveyor belts and that sort of thing. I think with AI, from my standpoint, from a sales standpoint, it takes the human element out of it, because you can generate communications to a client without there's no quote unquote personal there's no personal sort of direct communication. You can set the system up to do what you want to do when you go on about your business. So in essence, what do you need a live sales rep for, right?
Okay.
And so, there's some pushback from that, right? Even with the Writers Guild, right? They have some issues with that, right? Because it takes out just the human element of it. And so, but even and having said that, saying that, there's still opportunity for someone like myself to utilize AI for me to be more productive, right? To maybe reach out to some people that I wouldn't normally be able to contact or have a means to contact. And so that additional touch could be of benefit, right? I mean, it's a numbers game from a sales standpoint. So, you increase the number of people you reach out to, increases the chances of those people, replying back with whatever needs or questions that they may have, right? So from that standpoint, it is a benefit.
Okay. Do you
But
it's here.
It's not going away. It's not going away.
Do you foresee any particular area at this point where it's not going to fall to automation or AI? Like you just have to have a human person there?
Honestly, limited people.
Wow.
So I'll give you an example now. I could probably count the number of people, a number of companies where I walk through the front door and there's someone there to greet me, right? You just don't have people at the front desk anymore. Wow. You just don't. And so that's been replaced with a phone, right? You hit whatever extension of the person you're going to see. And so that's, you don't see that in the warehouse. They have, automated forklifts that can scan the barcodes, place the unit in particular storage bins and that sort of thing. So you don't have a person that's physically picking and packing, units anymore. But you need people who can, again, STEM, we talked about earlier, people who can program, right, those systems to do those things, right? Okay. So you need people. You just the labor side of thing is going to be seriously reduced.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things a little troubling to me is a lot of these jobs tend to be they don't require higher education sometimes to do these jobs. So where do these people?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you'll still have some basic warehouse needs because not every company can make that investment into the AI structure and some of the automated structure that will, reduce. I mean, it's a long-term investment, Okay. And so I'm sure there's some benefit to it. Some of those larger organizations, depending on what they have and what they do, that long-term investment makes it worthwhile. But there's still jobs out there for people, right? I mean, again, but it's service industry, low paying, low skill opportunities, right? And so we know what that pay scale is, and we know typically, what that looks like, and that's not to say, that college is our only out for success. I don't believe that. Yes.
Because I don't think we can automate plumbers no time soon, right?
No. HVAC, no. No. And there's only so much YouTube can do for that.
I know, right? Well, how soon will we be seeing these big rigs driving themselves on the freeway or on the Dan Ryan and stuff like that? Is that like in the next 5 years or?
I would say yes in the next 5. And I don't know about the Dan Ryan. That's pretty tough. But I think but yeah, I think on some of these interstates, it's feasible. You have some companies that have regularly scheduled runs. Every Monday they pick up and every Wednesday deliver. And the route can be no more than 4 or 5 turns, right? From the customer's dock to the interstate to the destination's facility. And so I'm pretty sure from a logistics standpoint, it's doable. It's definitely doable. Yeah. And so, I mean, you would think at one point in time, that would be a job that you physically need somebody to to do and manage, right?
Yeah.
So, but I think that's coming. Now, will it take over the industry? I'm cautious to say that, but I think it's not a it wouldn't surprise me again in 5 years we see an automated vehicle, Walmart truck driving from DC to store. Yeah.
You mentioned your age earlier. I've got you beat by a few years, but
Okay.
We grew up watching the same cartoons. So the Jetsons is
Yeah.
coming to life now, you know.
Yes.
Wow. I just
Yes.
I never would have thought that I would have seen a big rig truck
I
driving
know.
itself. But here we are.
Here we are.
Here we are. Well, sir, I am going to ask you my random question. And
Okay.
then I'm going to ask, well, let me ask you this, because your fearless leader, your bossless, he failed in the question. So I'm going to ask you, your chapter recently celebrated charter day. What date was the charter date? Both of you, I'm gonna fire both of you. I'm going to fire both of you. You just recently had the celebrations.
I believe it was September 9th.
Okay, I'm going to check here.
I believe it was September 9th.
I'm going to give you a moment to look on your phone here. I can't believe I got both of you.
Shame on me.
Both of you. I know you got the month right. See, I checked. I know you got the month right.
Yeah. So again, like I said, I came in, I didn't come in under this chapter.
I just want the date. That's okay. That's okay.
Well, our website is Rho Mu Mu, MUMU.org.
And it has all you need on there, right? Okay. Let me get you out the hot. Let me get you out the hot seat. Let me get you out the hot seat with the question. Let me ask you my random question. I know you know Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated founder date. Do I know you know that one?
Yeah, November 17th, 1911.
Awesome.
That's your random question?
No.
Oh, okay.
No. I got real random question here.
Okay.
Let's see what we got here. If you had to give up your phone for a week, which app would you miss the most?
ESPN.
So you watched Coach Prime recently, huh?
Yeah, I enjoy Coach Prime.
Watch him doing his thing.
Yeah, I appreciate his leadership.
Yes. Not too many of us in the community are gonna say too much bad about Coach Prime right now. He out there doing it. Well, sir, please give us your website once again so that we can find the charter date for.
It is RHOMUMU.org, and it's actually September 6th, 2011. I said the 7th, but it's the 6th.
All right, you got it together. So, you gentlemen have any events coming up in the community coming up soon or anything?
Yes, we just had our day party this past Sunday, which feeds into our scholarship program for next spring. We had a great time. We started up our mentoring program. Actually, one of them starts tomorrow. We have a standing appointment, if you will, with high school students from some area high schools every third Tuesday of the month. And then we have a program called A Few Good Men, where we mentor high school students throughout the school year. And that's every 2 weeks. That's at a separate high school, Thornwood High School. So now the school's backing up. We're back heavily active with our youth, right? I mean, that's big for us. And then we'll have our founders banquet in November, and that'll be a joint banquet with all the Chicagoland chapters.
About how many chapters? Are there a lot of?
There's 10 chapters in Chicagoland.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Great. I love that because just listening to your story, the mentorship started at a young age and it produced a wonderful Omega man. So you guys are pouring back into the younger kids. And, I think that as I mentioned earlier, that can change the trajectory of a young person's life. So it's very important. Well, I
Yes.
appreciate Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated for the
Thank
work
you.
that you do. Just some phenomenal work. A lot of times people see the letters and the colors and they're like, who are those guys? And I'm like, you don't know that? You're missing out on life. So from the low me, I appreciate you, gentlemen.
Thank you. Appreciate you.
Next time I'm in Chicago, it's been some years, but I'll have to stop by and
No doubt.
peek at you, gentlemen, and see what you
Yeah,
guys
we'll
are
take
up
care
to.
of you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Many blessings to you and yours, and continue. I ain't got to tell you that y'all gonna do what y'all do anyway.
Right, we will. Okay. I'll see you.
That's all for this week's episode of The Male Perspective. I'm your host, Lana Reid, and I will see everybody next time.